everyone. What I would like to tell you is today we are making United States globe history. Just to talk about that for a little bit, last month, Globe celebrated their 30th anniversary. And today we are starting a new thing for Globe. We are having a United States virtual Student Research Symposia. So the symposia are usually in person, but this year we pivoted to a pilot, which is making this virtual. You're still going to get that interaction with STEM professionals, and our goals are still to learn from each other, grow as scientists, and have fun. Again, our Zoom norms are to mute yourself when you're not speaking, be respectful to presenter and other attendees, share the talk time, use your chat for questions or comments. So please do that. I know some of you may have a whole classroom of people. So if you want to have your educator, your teacher be the one who is typing in those chat questions, that's great. And then we also would like you to raise your hand if you would like to speak. So if you look at where we are from, we did take all of the STEM professionals and all of the schools that were participating and put them on this map. If you are not from those places, but you'd also like to be on the map, go ahead and we have a link in our Padlet to our map. So you can go ahead and add yourself. But you see that we have people from all over the country calling in and presenting. This is the Student Research Symposia Padlet. This is the home base. This is where you start every day. It has links to each day's presentations and the bios for the STEM professionals that we are going to have participating this week. We invite you to comment and ask questions on the projects in the STEM professionals posts. So for each day, there is another Padlet. It links to a Padlet which has all the different presentations for your day. So again, if you run out of time in your discussions and you want to ask questions, or perhaps you watch somebody else's presentation and you want to leave a comment, we welcome that. And then during the week, we would love it if you upload any photos from the week. So if you're sitting in the room with your whole class, or if you're sitting with your colleagues who presented with you and you take a picture, we would love to have you upload those photos from the week. We do need media releases if we're going to share those. So please, we'll follow up with a media release if there's any faces in those. And also if there's any activities that you did during the presentations for the career, we have Globe Career Panel Bingo that came in your engagement box. We also have an opportunity for you to make different education and environmental shrinky dinks, and there were Globe logos in there for you to color and to make those. And then everybody who is presenting also got a mystery satellite picture. So you have a color a pixel activity. So we would love it if you're doing that color a pixel, if you uploaded a picture of the final picture, and then we can all try and guess where it's from. And now I'll turn it over to Dr. Amy Chen, who is the NASA Headquarters Globe Program Manager. Amy?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, hi, everyone. For those who have not met, I am the Globe Program Manager at NASA Headquarters, and I am at home today because I was up until about 3 o'clock last night joining the Asia Pacific regional meeting, and it was great to hear from everybody there. But I'm jet lagged in a sense. So it's good to see you all. And on behalf of NASA, especially my colleagues here in Earth Science Division, I want to say a warm welcome to everyone for joining this year's Virtual Student Research Symposium. I know that many of you took and analyze globe observations over the last several months to better understand the environment in your community and investigate the questions in the Earth systems that you are interested in. And I want to congratulate all of you on initiating and completing your SRS projects, and also being a really good steward of the environment around you. I'm looking forward to learning from you and hearing more about your projects and learning about what you discovered and your next steps. And so I also want to thank you for sending your data to Globe's open access database. So as you know, NASA Earth Science Division develop, launch, and maintain operation of 20 plus satellites that orbits the Earth and help us understand a variety of aspects connected to our Earth system, from a tropical region all the way to glaciers. And we have, instruments on the International Space Station. We have airborne assets, and we have observations on the ground. And Globe Student Science data, certainly part of that important part of that puzzle to help us really build a complete understanding of how our system is changing over time. And so the in situ observations that you are collecting is very important, not just because they help you understand the questions you're interested in that you put in your SRS project, but it also contributes to long-term environmental monitoring. And I want to tell you that we had about 2,800 visitors who completed the survey that are on globe.gov. When you go to our data viewing system and retrieval system over the last year, and we know that students like yourself, graduate students, and educators, college students, interested public, and users of various types, scientists, researchers, government officials, they come to Globe and they're retrieving our data, analyzing them, and using them because of the observations that you and many Globe participants put in. And what do they use it for? They use it for education research purposes. They use it for professional development. They use it for fundamental research. They support graduate student thesis and more. And so, you should be very proud of yourself that you are part of that, puzzle, and the data that you put in, collectively was retrieved over 200,000 times just in the last year. So I will close this by saying that I'm really looking forward to learning more about your project, and I want to thank the educators that are in the room or viewing this afterwards for the mentoring that you have provided to support your students. And I want to thank all the reviewers who are here to provide critical feedback, constructive feedback to help our students grow. And I want to thank the U.S. Country Coordination Office for organizing the SRS every year. And this year they had to do a very quick pivot from planned in-person event to this virtual setting. So thank you, everyone, for making this happen. And I think collectively we're always stronger. And I'm going to turn it back to Jen and others. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Amy Chen. I would love it if you put your name. Don't hit return yet. This is a waterfall, so hold on. You put your name and then your city and your state. And then I'm going to count down backwards from 5. So I'm giving you a count of 5 at least. And then I'm going to say waterfall. When I say waterfall, put in where your name and then city and state. Okay, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, waterfall. Very cool. Okay, so it's supposed to look like a waterfall over there in the chat. So if you look, we have Michigan, Ohio, a couple from California, lots from California. We got a Tyler, Texas. We got a Florida in there, Tennessee, nice. Maine, Colorado, Vermont. Oh, good. We have in New York, and definitely New Hampshire and Arizona. So look at the representation that we have even this today, or where you are, it might be morning. So thank you, everyone. This is a good practice. Sometimes we call for these waterfalls over in the chat. So I'm going to go back to my slideshow. You can check out, and you can also make comments over there in the chat. Again, we're asking you to utilize the chat, especially when we're sharing the screen with so many people. Okay, I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint. And I just wanted to go over briefly code of conduct. Your teacher might have gone over this already, but we're just going to highlight a couple things. The U.S. Student Research Symposium is committed to everyone having a friendly and welcoming community, and that allows all of you to participate fully and safely. This is a little bit different because we are virtual, but still we expect things in the chat to be friendly and welcoming and respectful, and also be patient with each other and thoughtful. We're all dealing with a virtual environment, and we've already had a couple technical issues today. So please bear with us as we work out all of our technical issues too. For virtual events, just another reminder here that not everyone may have signed that media release at this time. So there's no taking or sharing of photos or screenshots of images or videos of the participants or event staff without permission. There's no private chatting between participants. And then please don't share that connection information with people outside the program who are not registered. And then no private one-on-one interaction with staff is permitted, and that goes for students and the staff. Obviously, if you're an educator, you are allowed to communicate with the staff. We welcome that. In your box, you got some peer review sheets and a highlighter. So we would love it if you would also, as you're listening to each other's presentations, you take notes on your peer review form. So you have anywhere from 3 to 4 presentations that you're going to be seeing today and hearing from other students that are within your breakout group. Be specific and kind. We have a couple examples on that review sheet of what you can say. So things like graphs were well done, data were presented clearly. Do you have ideas for your next steps? Maybe you could collect, or an area of improvement, maybe you could collect data from a larger area for comparison. We do know that some of the presentations have also indicated where they would go next. So that is really exciting to be able to hear that as well from each of you. The badges for the projects. So after you've heard those projects, we would love it if you mark down if it was a use of GLOBE protocols and data that you thought was like a really awesome piece that they did. The research process was really solid. If the project had a strong community impact, if they used 21st century skills like collaboration, creativity, if they communicated their project really well, and then also community knowledge. Did they use Indigenous or community knowledge in their projects? And we're going to ask you at the end of each one, you'll see that the moderators and we have these little badges up top. That's to remind you. And so at the end of that presentation, the moderator, and we have 2 of them here, Tracy Ostrom and Jody Haney, are going to ask, what badges did you choose? And then you can waterfall the badge that you chose. So this is just a reminder that that's happening. And then there'll be time for you to share your questions and comments with the other teams. Okay, so the next thing to do is we want to meet our STEM professionals today. So Brendan O'Connor is from the Science and Technology Corporation. He works very closely with Dr. Amy Chen on GLOBE. And then we have Dr. Allison Post from the University of Colorado Boulder. And so those are our 2 STEM professionals we're going to highlight today. And so I'm going to start off. So Dr. Allison Post, would you please introduce yourself and then tell us which of your talents or skills contributes most to your work and why?
All right, hello, can everyone hear me? Good, well, I'm really glad to be here today. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to hear about the projects that you've done. Just a little background, I am an ecologist, and so I study large-scale biology questions. So questions like, how does weather affect plants, and how does that affect the atmosphere and animals that live in the environments? And I work, as she said, at the University of Colorado Boulder. I work for a group called Earth Lab. And we use a lot of big data sets, that communities collect or that's collected by satellites to look at questions about climate change. Let's see. My focus is mostly on grasslands, hence my background. So I study a lot of grasslands and how they respond to weather patterns, such as how rainfall causes when they green up and when they brown down and when they flower. So it's exciting. I live in Colorado, so they're greening up right now. We have lots of wildflowers around. And then I think the question I was supposed to answer was about my talents or skills contribute to my work. And I think something that is big for me is, first of all, just being curious. So like I said, I took a hike yesterday and I was walking through the grasslands, and I'm always curious about, why is that flower growing there? Or why is it blooming now and not a week from now? So that's a big one. And then another one for me is enjoying communicating science like this. Being able to share knowledge is really fun for me. And then I think the last one for me is being a very organized person, thinking about how to collect data and keep it organized in a way so we can analyze it and understand patterns from that data. So I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison, and welcome. Okay, Brendan O'Connor, what is your current role and how did you get here? After you introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Like Allison, I'm very excited to be here. I'm really looking forward to learning about your research and getting an understanding of what passions drove you to choose the various research topics. So as Jen and Amy mentioned, I work for the GLOBE program. So I'm a support scientist. So I get to do lots of different things to help promote and improve the GLOBE program. So I work with a lot of different scientists. I attend lots of meetings and try and identify ways that we can continue to improve the project and the program, and how we can use the data that students like you collect, and how we can bridge the gap between you collecting the data in your local communities and how scientists can then use that data. How I got here, I have a pretty, my career has had lots of twists and turns. I think like most scientists, we tend to start out thinking that we're going to go in this direct path, and then something happens, new funding arises, or you're maybe not quite in love with what you were doing and you start changing. And I think that's one of the things that is exciting about science, that it's such a broad topic and broad field, that when you start exploring a particular topic, you start delving into lots of different categories. So how I got here, I grew up in Ireland, hence the accent. So hopefully you all understand what I'm saying. Sometimes it takes a little minute to get familiar with the way I say things. I worked in Ireland as an environmental consultant for about 10 years, doing lots of work with local communities, some of the same stuff that Allison has worked on with ecology and wildlife. And then I moved to the US to do a master's in biological oceanography. And that was where I started using remote sensing and maps to explore the Deepwater Horizon big oil spill that occurred back in 2010. And then I worked as a biologist for about 8 years with Florida Fish and Wildlife. So it's been lots of different roles, and every day is a learning day. I kind of learn something new almost every day. Sometimes I have to try and figure out if it's something I already knew and just forgot, or if it's an entirely new topic. So I'm really looking forward to getting an understanding of all of your research, and I think we're coming up to close to the time that we're going to go into the breakout, so I'll stop talking.
Awesome. I'm just going to throw out one more simple question, hopefully, because I really want to know this one. I don't know how fast you can do this, Dr. Post, but what was your biggest oops moment in the lab or field?
Oh boy. Okay. I'm going to tell one from the field. I did a lot of field work in the prairie, and I don't know if anyone's ever been there, but it's often very windy in the prairie. And we were trying to put these drought shelters up, so clear plastic covers over sections of the prairie to prevent rainfall from getting to the grass. And I underestimated the wind, and so we installed these, and then a big rainstorm came that afternoon, and then they were flying all across the prairie, and we were running after them trying to collect all the roofs. So that was a big oopsie for me, but we tied them down more secure next time, and they mostly stayed in place the rest of the season.
Improvising on the fly. That's a great skill to have.
Exactly. Yep.
And let's see, Brendan, I have this one here. What is one of the more memorable projects you've worked on in your career?
Oh, that's a challenging one, but I think one of the highlights for me was feeding manatees at an outflow area. They'd all congregated because they don't have a big tolerance for cold water, so they all amass in a particular area on the east coast of Florida, and we got to feed them lettuce over the course of 3 months. And we fed them something like, I think it was 60 heads of lettuce 3 times a day. There were about 800 manatees in the area, and it was just a phenomenal experience to see that many really large animals in one congregated area and being able to do something to help their survival.
I was hoping you would say that, because that's probably the one story that you told me that I was like, oh, I wish I could do that.
Yes, we had lots of volunteers on hand. It was a very popular project for people to get involved with.
All right, so it is time to go into our breakout rooms. So let me just share one more slide. All right, so it's time for presentations and discussion. So you're going to be invited to join your group's breakout room. You're going to watch the video presentations and participate in peer review. So remember, you're going to have your sheets in front of you, or you can have just a piece of paper. And then during that time, there may be a little bit of time for a question in the chat. And then there's going to be a 5-minute break after the videos, and then you're going to have discussion time with your STEM professional and your peers and anybody else that are STEM professionals or that are educators that have joined us today. I see that there's a long list of those. So you're going to have some great discussion in those breakout rooms with all of those people. And at the end, we're going to come back together just for a very quick closing. And we'll be here, so have a great time.